Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Ray Hernandez. Well, we kind of screwed up, or I should say I screwed up. We'd recorded this episode on Sunday, and unfortunately life kind of got in the way and didn't have a chance to edit until today. In a way, it's kind of a silver lining because there's no baseball tonight. What was supposed to be opening day is canceled due to COVID with the Nationals. So now we have to wait till Saturday. So I figured, hey, why not just go ahead and do some editing now, drop episode number 13, and so that hopefully this gets you through the next, let's call it 48 hours. Looking forward to Saturday and our opener, and look forward to interacting with all of you on Twitter and wherever you're listening to this podcast. Be sure to follow us at BTB Podcast 2 on Twitter, and as always, thanks for listening. Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Ray Hernandez, and it's another episode of Behind the Bag. Today, as always, I'm joined by the one and only Johnny Ice. Johnny, what's going on, my friend?
Well, we're a little late this week. This is a Sunday. It's a
holiday weekend.
Holiday weekend. We've got Palm Sunday. We've got Passover going on. I mean, what more could you ask for? The Baker's Dozen episode of number 13. So we're just, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time.
Well, I'm a little superstitious, so I didn't want to do this episode on Friday night. And then, obviously yesterday was the Seder. How was the Seder, by the way?
When we're outdoors, outdoor Seder, people around you looking around, it's like you're speaking in tongues, sitting around, pointing at things on a plate. So yeah. We were a spectacle, but that's how we do in the tribe.
It's 2021. That's how we roll in this world. But speaking of how we roll, so today we're going to do Lee Mazzilli, episode 13. What? Why are you looking at me that way? Why?
Lee Mazzilli.
It's number 13.
Lee Mazzilli?
Yeah. Lee Mazzilli was 13. Come on.
Oh, I mean, we were all 13 at some point, but Lee Mazzilli, I can't do Lee Mazzilli.
All right. Well, I know we when we talked about this, it was either Lee Mazzilli or Jeff Musselman. I didn't really want to talk about Jeff.
Well, I don't know. Maybe
we did in the archives.
I think I had too much matzah. This is very confusing.
All right. Well, what do you say we talk about Edgardo Alfonzo? If maybe we could find some common ground.
That's much better. I think I have a lot more memories of Edgardo Alfonzo. Let's do it.
Happy days are back again, which might as well be the 2021 Mets, because I got to tell you, the last week here of spring training, I'm feeling pretty good about the season. But let's think about what happened the week that was here. I mean, a triple play. That's when you know that this is going to be our year.
Yes, when we did not ground into a triple play or line into a triple play or bunt and hit home plate into a triple play, this is our year. Wow.
Oh, man. That was pretty exciting. Like, I actually, I was like scrolling on the old Twitter machine there, and I was like, wait, did that really happen? It was pretty awesome to see.
Those things are, I think they're amongst the rarest things in baseball, right? If you talk about somewhere in between the cycle and 4 home runs, 3 home runs, it's one of those things, no hitter, perfect game. We're going to have to go down the list and see where triple play is, but it's one of those things. There. It's funny, as a kid, I always envisioned doing it. I don't know why, but something about turning a triple play, and it was always, step on third, throw it to second, not a line out one, literally a ground out, we're talking about, 5-4-3 triple play.
I'm still scarred from, I think it was like a Sunday game in like 2010 when the Mets like literally line drive. I've never seen a triple play like that to end the game.
I think it was line drive, tag, hit the base, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. That was such a kick in the nads, like as if we weren't down enough. It was 2010, 2011, but anyway.
If it happened in more contemporary times, it would be one of those like Instagram memes or something like that. And it's just like, how's your week going? And it's like click, click, click.
Well, speaking of click, 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 I mean, people are starting to get cut down on the roster. I mean, this is when you know it's getting real. I do have to say, I was a little surprised that I can never say his name, Jordan Yamamoto, was cut. Well, at least brought down to AAA. But, I guess it's a good problem to have, but I thought for sure he was going to make the rotation.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and chalk it up to let's get this guy some extra innings to start the year. I feel like that's always a kind of conundrum, not as much with pitchers, but more of like position players. And it's like maybe this person's better off starting the league in the minors to get some at bats in, get some playing time in, and then we'll be ready. As opposed to it's usually like that with rookies, where it's like, do you start them on the big league roster when they won't start, and then and then what happens, like what could happen. So Yamamoto is still our boy, and we'll be seeing him by the first week of May probably. So that's fine.
What was interesting yesterday's game, they started to almost tease the idea of going to an opener, Barnes starting, and then they brought in, I think, Lucchesi for a couple innings. It'll be kind of cool to see a starter in a Mets uniform, an opener. Sorry, because that would just kind of signal that the Mets are just starting to get with the times. It's still mind blown a little bit, but
yeah, it's still something that I have to get used to. But maybe if the Mets do it, it'll be a little easier for me to dip my toe into that, backwards all-star game kind of mentality there.
And then I will quote Aaron Loop with his, hey, why wouldn't I want to be an opener? You throw an inning and then you have beers the rest of the night.
I was gonna say, then you Keith Hernandez it in the clubhouse after you
my spirit animal of the year.
After you do your work for the 1, 2, 3. So yes. Speaking of Keith, there were a little rumbling on Twitter about retired Mets numbers, and I think it might be a future Mets episode. There's a few of them on the list for me. But who was it? Mike Piazza, I think, was the person who teased it out.
Yep. I mean, look, I think Keith is absolutely deserving. He should be up there. I mean, I did see, that it's going to be maybe David Wright, but I think Keith has to go before anybody.
I think you definitely need Keith to go because the players that have gotten number 17 in the meantime, it's just like, I don't know who comes up with the numbers, maybe the clubhouse guy, but whoever it is very
this a
disrespectful.
Rip?
Yeah,
is this a rip? Let's go through it. I think there's
it's a day sun rib is what it is.
we got Jose Lima. I remember in the mid 90s, and this is apropos. See, I'm using a Howie Rose word there because we are talking about Edgardo Alfonso, but I remember in that era, I think it was Louis Lopez, the backup shortstop.
Louis Lopez was going to be my my input for this one. Like, are you kidding me? Louis Lopez? Keith, number 17, I think is that's got to be the top of the list before we get to anybody else, because it's just there's too many rough players that have been.
Absolutely. Speaking of rough players and being on top of the list, I have to just say some heat here. Jed Lowry tearing it up in spring training. He's going to be the starting second baseman for the Oakland A's. And I believe it was someone, definitely saw it on Twitter, but someone said that this was the biggest con job in the history of sports, that this guy got, 20 mil and played 2 at bats. And then I think if
Oakland Steve Cohen was the owner at the time, I think he'd pursue litigation at this point. I mean, this is a robbery.
Seriously,
I think we paid for about 4 at bats overall, or something ridiculous like that.
If this guy goes off to have 16 homers and 300, I'm just gonna say, you know what? Have fun with Steven Matz.
I mean, that's nice of you, because I was just gonna send Tanya Harding's boyfriend after him, but you're a lot nicer than I am. I'll tell you that much.
Someone's got to be the good cop here.
Speaking of being nice, we'll throw it out there for Matt Harvey making the big league roster for the Orioles. No hard feelings to Matt Harvey. I mean, we had talked about it in previous episodes about talking about an event of Pedro Martinez Day, and it was really only second overall. You've got to Matt Harvey Day. and just how quickly everything unfolded there, and the whole straight out of innings and the whole 2015 situation.
Yeah.
But good for him, because I was actually surprised how long he'd been struggling, and each opportunity he got, I thought that was going to be the one where it's like, all right, Matt Hardy's Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy.
Well, Matt Hardy was pitching like Matt Hardy.
Yeah, it may as well have been Matt Hardy. I thought, I thought the next opportunity
what a
would
twist
be
of
Matt
fate
Hardy's.
this is. See what I did there?
That's right. That's right. So hey, shout out to Matt Harvey. Go do well, and also hang out in the American League. I don't want to see you for a while.
I think the Orioles are playing the Mets at Citi Field at early season, so that would be something if he's on the mound. But
we're going. Whatever it is, we're going. It could be the middle of the day. We'll all be working remote anyway. Wi-Fi is going to be popping at Citi Field.
Definitely, Uncle Stevie, please enhance the Wi-Fi. Speaking of the enhancements, it is the birthday week. We always talk about the enhancements out there. Hey, oh my God, it was Lee Mazzilli's birthday the other day.
Yeah, I didn't want to bury the lead on Lee Mazzilli, but I
clearly did not read the read-ahead notes, the game notes here that Johnny Ice put together. That's pretty, now I'm boycotting. Why aren't we doing a Lee Mazzilli episode?
We're just going to do Lee Mazzilli. Here it is. He coached the Orioles, and he brought in Willie Randolph as a base coach.
The only guy that I knew that had 3 different jersey numbers with the Mets. I only knew him as number 13. But if you look at some of his old pictures, he's in his 20s. Then he's got 16 at one time. Hey.
He was the grumpiest looking Met of all time. Maybe, I don't know. He just never looked happy. So it was Lee Mazzilli's birthday this past week. So
one last Lee Mazzilli thing, because I don't know when we'll ever talk about him again, is just think about it. I believe he had he was the poster boy for one of the most clever slogans in Mets history, I believe. I think it was the late 70s, and the poster was, come to Queens to see what a kid from Brooklyn can do. I mean, or something along those lines. I mean,
I think I need that poster. I need to find that poster. Yes. I need to find that poster. Wow.
Other birthdays.
My goodness. I had, just for you and I, we have this relief pitcher closer thing. Jose Valverde, who I barely remember his Mets stint.
I do not at all. I'm actually surprised to see that name on the list there.
He did still have a birthday this week. Tom Glavine shares a birthday with Lee Mazzilli, so we'll have a whole, Questron or whatever that. We'll have a whole Quest Tech episode.
Never
one
to
time
be
for
said
that
again.
Guy.
Yes.
Every episode, Jose Vizcaino, who literally gets mentioned, and he'll be mentioned again, I think, in this episode.
He will. And I was a big fan of Jose Vizcaino. I'm not gonna lie. And in 8th grade, Burroughs Junior High School, when I finally made the team, I got number 15, and I was like, "This is awesome. This is the Jose Vizcaino jersey. I'm good."
Well, you didn't stick around as long as Jose Vizcaino, so that's unfortunate.
Not.
It's sad.
Definitely not.
Also, the 27th, which was yesterday, big day in Met birthdays. Brandon Nimmo, current player, Matt Harvey, who we just spoke about, and Michael Kadire,
So does that mean yesterday was Harvey Day?
There it was, and it was definitely not Hardy Day. That's something else. And just a quick note: today is actually Paul Wilson's birthday. So, of Generation K or whatever we want to call.
We're going Harvey, and it would be an interesting analysis. I mean, I'm not going to do it right now. It would be interesting to analyze Wilson and Matt Harvey, because, Matt Wilson kind of had a little resurrection when he went to the Cincinnati Reds.
Yes.
Harvey, not so much, but he was a Red. So
he was a Red.
There's a connection there.
So those are the birthdays,
John's moving on.
Well, I'm trying to quickly gather my Lee Mazzilli notes is what's going on here. I'm trying to stall until I could get Lee Mazzilli all set up over here. But no, this episode we're talking about the second baseman, number 13, Edgardo Alfonzo.
Yes, and the third baseman and the shortstop.
Yes, and pinch hitting. So I mean, I'm excited about this because he was actually one of my all-time favorite, growing up high school kind of Mets during that 99, 2000, like really peak of our Piazza years.
Oh yeah.
I just love. He was probably my favorite player at the time on that team. I loved Edgardo
You know
Alfonso.
what's interesting is combined with the Ordonez, they were kind of the beginning of the two eras, right? Like the growing up era and then the late 90s, early 2000s teams of success. And I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but Edgardo makes his debut right after the strike. I was actually really interested and actually surprised that Edgardo was signed as an amateur free agent in '91 with Frank Cashin as the GM. I mean, that's like when you think about the lineage, I don't
Yeah.
think about Alfonso going back to, Frank Cashin. I mean, that's
Yeah, when
wild.
I saw 91 there, I kind of had to check I had to check a few times because I was a little that seems so early
Yep.
because when we're talking about 10 years before like the '01 teams and the 9 years before the World Series and things like that, I was like 91.
Yeah.
But again, it was a different time. We had players actually staying in the minor leagues for a longer period of time.
Really interesting that he made the team in 4 years when you think about it.
Yeah.
So I will say this because I know you're going to do the background, which you do so well with all your research. That's what makes this show. But I have to say, like, do you remember any before Alfonso, any Venezuelan players on the Mets? Because for me, growing up in a Latin household, my grandfather, he just always took extra special pride. I mean, yes, we grew up in the Darling, Fernandez, Cone, Gooden era, but he would always light up when there was a Spanish player.
Yeah.
And, when I think about the Latin players, you think of Puerto Rico, you think of Dominican Republic, you think of Cuba in the late 90s becoming more popular, maybe a little Mexico here and there, but Venezuela, not exactly a hotbed for baseball, at least at that time. And the only player that I can remember from Venezuela being a Met player was this guy. It's going to slip my name here. They used to call him the Iguana Man, Julio Machado. Do you remember Julio Machado?
I do not, but
So
I would love
Julio
to get a
Machado,
shirt, the Iguana
yes,
Man.
he was the Iguana Man because he used to eat iguana, and he was a reliever in, I want to say, '89 season. Little bit of a spark plug, fire plug, fireballer. And then I think he got traded to the Brewers. And unfortunately for him, he was arrested for murder and it's never to be found again.
And it wasn't an iguana that he took out.
But that's the only Venezuelan player. Now, obviously, today you think about Venezuela, you think about Miguel Cabrera, and you think about, some of these other, even Wilson Ramos is Venezuelan, for
really?
all you want to talk about with the Buffalo. I mean, it is there are some great solid talent, but I feel like Edgardo was the first one that I can remember being a solid, Venezuela.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember really like the Mets like that in detail. I do remember probably the first Venezuelan overall that I'd ever heard of anywhere was Andres Galarraga. He was probably like the most famous,
yes,
like anywhere, like not even outside of sports. Even it was just like Andres Galarraga, Venezuelan, and then you learn over the years about all the things, and I mean. Venezuela, we can go down a rabbit hole. They have a very interesting history of Venezuela. Oil, a lot of socialism. There's a lot of things.
That's and relievers like K-Rod, right? I mean, come on.
K-Rod,
or Uget. I don't know if K-Rod was Venezuela.
Uget
Urbina. I mean, come on, Mister. Let me get a machete. I mean.
Well, I think if we mix him with your boy Machado and then we bring in Bartolome Fortunato with his snake oil, I think we have a team of witch doctors or something like that.
Anyhow, moving on, but it's a very interesting thing. While you give us our history on Edgardo, I'm going to look up Mr. Machado because I'm totally like. Wonder he's going to be this week's Terry Leach, John.
You may as well look up his phone number at this point. See if you call him up in the meantime.
I think he's still in jail, but go ahead.
Well, Edgardo Alfonzo, as we know, is from Venezuela. He was born in 1973 in San Teresa del Toy, Venezuela. The youngest of 4 children, and we always hear about his brothers and his family were big around the baseball scene. His father Edgar was a truck driver, and his mother was a preschool teacher. So pretty normal family growing up. His oldest brother Edgar Jr. Played in the minor leagues from '85 to 1996. So never really made the big leagues in any kind of with any noise.
But it's
an
incredible family when you think about it, though. I mean, not to cut you off, but it threw me for a loop that it was like Edgardo,
Yeah, it must be a confusing dinner table.
I mean, but if I'm not mistaken, the older brother was a coach for the Mets in the Mets farm system. I think he coached the Generation K in Binghamton, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I remember seeing, not with this research, but in the past, just seeing references to like Edgar Alfonzo, and I thought maybe Edgardo like had shortened his name, or that's like what they were calling him in the newspapers, and I was so confused to see like the coach Edgar. But so Edgar Jr. ended up being a minor league coach. His middle brother Robert actually played for the Mets farm system in '93, '94, and eventually became a scout. He's got other family members who played in at least the minors of the Venezuelan Winter League. And then, which I didn't know, his second cousin, Eliezer Alfonzo, was a big league catcher from 2006 to 2011. So it was really, I think, as similar to growing up in a place like the Dominican Republic as well. He would say his youth was simply go to school, play ball, nothing else. I think it's a lot of, this is your way out. Then this is kind of the way to get to, get money, go to America, things like that. So heavy influence on the baseball, and his family, excelled in it.
Wild.
But his brother joined the Caracas team, the Caracas Leones of the Venezuelan Winter League in '84. And again, this goes back to like, the Mets signing Edgardo in '91. You don't think this story was going to go back to 1984. But he got to witness in that league, Andres Galarraga, Tony Armas, and Omar Vizquel. So, they all played with his brother, which is, I mean, if you're going to watch anybody out there up close and personal, that's pretty awesome. And, speaking of numbers, in honor of Dave Concepcion, so he was number 13. So Edgardo Alfonzo, Ozzie Guillen, and Omar Vizquel all actually chose the number 13 because of and in honor of Dave Concepcion. So if you want to make this episode about Dave Concepcion,
I got nothing.
Let's really test our skills over here.
Nothing. By the way, let's call a little timeout here. Folks, are you wondering for some research for Baseball Reference? Cue the music here. Just look this up. So Julio Machado, my man Julio, gets traded as a player to be named later to the Milwaukee Brewers for catcher Charlie O'Brien.
Oh,
Charlie O'Brien
God, I don't want to hear about Charlie O'Brien. I'd rather talk about Charlie Huff than Charlie O'Brien. Curly-haired, dragging his legs around with all that equipment. I don't want to talk about Charlie O'Brien. Okay.
Oh,
but at least he didn't go to jail for murder. He didn't kill anybody.
Such a heel of a year. Jesus, John.
It's Sunday. It's Sunday.
So anyway, Charlie. So Machado, I was right. He did get arrested for murder. He shot a woman. And so, but the highlight here, not that he shot a woman. I mean, that is the highlight.
That's a highlight, all right.
I mean, Jesus, Christmas trees here. But, let's see here. So he was arrested. He admitted he fired his shots. He said he did so in self-defense, afraid that he was being robbed. Gets sent to jail. So he gets 12 years.
Is this in America or this is in?
He's in Venezuela at this point, so you're never going to see him again, right? Yeah. But he gets 12 years. He's sentenced to 12 years in '96, but was released in 2000. So he only did 4 years. But a very interesting tidbit here: when Machado was granted conditional freedom pending a trial, he was not allowed to leave Venezuela. Shortly thereafter, thieves stole the car of the prosecutor in Machado's case, and they set it on fire. Wild. I mean, I feel like this needs to be a Netflix documentary.
I thought you were going to say
Man. I think the title's going to be The Iguana Man.
The Iguana Man.
I mean,
I thought you were going to say one of the conditions is he can't pitch for the Mets or something like that. And I was going to be like, that's awesome. That's awesome.
all right. Now that I've derailed everything, let's cue it back. Let's
I
get the
mean,
music
no,
rolling here.
it actually makes sense because we're still in Venezuela for now.
Yes.
Edgardo is watching all these famous players in Venezuela.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's why you need to listen to this show, because you never know where it's going to take you. Random facts, but it's very interesting. I mean, there's something to be said about this. You think you get 25 guys in the clubhouse and everyone is just, on the up and up, but they, or people, I guess.
And a quick pause for those of you waiting for the Lee Mazzilli episode. It is not going to happen. We're just going to confirm right now. We're definitely going with Edgardo. So,
all right, John, take us away.
Send a letter to the complaint department. So, as Ray said earlier, Frank Cashin, I don't know if he personally took a trip to Venezuela, but let's say he did. He got on a plane and he visited Edgardo, his brother, his cousin, and his
Omar
father.
Minaya reference here. I mean, geez.
And he signed with the Mets in 1991 for $10,000. So amazing. How those signing bonuses have changed. Rookie ball, Edgardo hit .331 in the Gulf Coast League and a team MVP, so not bad. Then he ended up hitting .350 in Class A in 1992. So if we stop right there, I mean, in this day and age, would have just been fast-tracked at that point? I mean, we're talking about 1992. Edgardo's hitting .350 in A ball. So it's very interesting again to compare the time periods. And then, his shot came in 1994, which unfortunately was 1994. So he got placed on the 40-man roster in the winter of 94. So again, before the 95 season. And then what happens is the baseball strike.
Well, yeah. And the strike, had shortened that season already. So you don't even know if you're going to see baseball in 95. I mean, that's how wild that strike was. This past summer, I had actually read I think I talked about this before, but Bud Selig's book, For the Good of the Game. Highly recommend that you check it out if you're a fan of baseball. But, they talk about this. Apparently they had a deal with like the Clinton administration and to help kind of mediate, and they had struck a deal. And then I guess, at the last minute, the deal fell apart. Clinton has a press conference to, what Bud Selig had thought was going to be a deal or a mediation, and Clinton pretty much shamed the owners into, getting back to the table. I mean, that it was very interesting, the crossroads between sports and politics.
Yeah, I wish I had been a little older at the time to really fully absorb what was going on because, we were 12 or whatever. And, especially if it had happened nowadays. I mean, forget about the mud flinging that would be going on. And oh my God, again, between billionaires and millionaires, and we're all sitting there like, Jesus, come on.
We'll probably see it next year if things don't clear up. I mean, with the whole DH and, I know we're not going to spend too much time on the, current state. The only thing I really and truly remember about the strike, though, this will really show you like my age anyway, our age, but my age in terms of just not understanding the world. I remember an episode of Married with Children, and Mike Piazza was in it with, I think it was Joe Morgan and a couple of others. Mike Piazza was like the video cameraman, and he was like, "Hey, I got to pay the bills somehow." That's
awesome.
I don't know. That's
the one thing, and I'm trying to remember. I don't know why the name Rick Reed is coming to my mind. I don't think it's Rick Reed, but there was a strike breaking pitcher, I think, who ended up making the big leagues, and then
Rick Reed.
That was Rick Reed, and then he couldn't go to union meetings. So there was like the little things that he couldn't do, and so it was Rick Reed. After all, we read about like him in the minors and everything like that. So he did end up being a scab. Rick Reed.
He was a scab, and as he said, like, I had to put food on the table for my family. I had no, and I think for Rick, unfortunately, he had a hard time with the Mets in his first season because John Franco was the union rep for the Mets tough. And the pro union, and they really kind of gave him the cold shoulder. But as he pitched well, they kind of became more accepting, and we all know how that all turned out. So
yeah, that's how it works around here. But the interesting twist with Edgardo, so let alone not being able to play, you get into the immigration issues where
It's wild.
Immigration and Naturalization Service were able to block any foreigner from getting, any type of visa, so the work visa or whatever, to play in the majors. So Alfonso was just hanging out in Venezuela with the Iguana Man or something until he got the call.
That's insane. I remember when Alfonso came up. I think we were talking about it during the Terry Collins episode. I was wrong in saying that Edgardo, made his debut. It was either him or Pulsifer. I'm still going to look that up and figure it out. But anyway, but I do remember Alfonso, in that 95 season. And I think we talked about it in a recent episode where you're in between two eras. This was between two eras. I mean, when you look at Edgardo's debut, April 23rd, 1995, the roster, look at this. He makes his debut as a pinch hitter, by the way. He goes 0 for 1. But, I mean, the starting lineup for the Mets that day was Brett Butler in center field, Jose Vizcaino in shortstop, Rico Brogna at first base, Bobby Bowe at third base, Jeff Kent second base, Dave Segui playing left field. I only remember Dave Segui as a first baseman. Had no idea he played the outfield. Carl Everett in right field. Hudley was your catcher, and then Bobby Jones was your pitcher. So a very
we had a
interesting
lot of
roster.
Juice between position 3 and 8. We had a lot of people
Mixed
that dabbled around in some extracurricular activities.
Forget about it. And imagine being Edgardo Alfonzo. He's probably what, 20, early 20s, and he's in this clubhouse with, it really is, folks that are king. I'm going to say the word cantankerous. Is that the word? With Bobby Bowe?
Cantankerous, yeah, that's right.
Those are, and Carl Everett. I mean, it's amazing he made it past the first season.
Yeah, it's definitely the crew you want if you're going to get into a fight. But outside of that, Edgardo just coming in, trying to make his way from Venezuela, probably not the ideal situation to be coming to the big leagues. It's probably a little scary.
And I will say this, and again, not to bring, I'll bring culture into this for a little bit, right? But you look at, the Latin player, it's Jose Vizcaino, and that's it. I mean, Bobby Bowe is got Puerto Rican roots, but I don't think he's gonna, go out of his way to hang out with Edgardo. So again, picture yourself being Edgardo Alfonzo, early 20s, making your major league debut, and who are you hanging out with? You're probably sitting in the corner of the clubhouse with Jose and Ray Ordonez, of course, but that's probably it.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, because I think that's another thing when we talk about the difference in eras and just even socially. I'm sure there was a lot of hazing going on in that time period. This is, again, pre-social media, pre a lot of the progressive things going on in the world. I'm sure Edgardo had to go through a lot of stuff in the clubhouse back in 94, 95, just to
I could imagine.
Yeah. Just to, prove his locker worth over there.
Seriously. And by the way, Ordonez isn't even on the team yet, so I misspoke, because Ordonez comes in 96. So Edgardo's kind of on an island.
Yeah, I mean, so we should talk about Ordonez, because we have the position of Alfonzo is always in question, really. So he was in the minors with Ordonez, and then once Ordonez went up to the big leagues, Alfonzo begins to play second base down in the minor leagues, and it was kind of, I think the common thread here is positions of need. So I think that's something when you kind of recap and you look back at Edgardo Alfonzo as a player, if you see the number of positions that he played and how he actually hitting wise excelled and didn't let the moving around positions, and then eventually landed in second base, which is like his third different position, and was part of that, greatest infield ever. It's super interesting. And then the other part, to it is how he ended up, filling these needs and where the needs came from to have to play in these different positions.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and by the way, Alfonso's 21 when he comes up, just to put it into more perspective here. And so, yeah, I mean, and he's got Dallas Green as his coach. Oh my God.
Oof.
I'm amazed that he stuck it out as long as he did.
So add that to another thing.
Yeah. But that, and I know I'm fast forwarding to like the late 90s, but the greatest infield ever. I mean, it really was the greatest infield ever. Like, it was a joy to watch them. And Alfonso, the thing is, no matter where you put him, he wasn't the most nimble, but he always somehow made the play.
Yeah, he was solid, and like I said before, he didn't let it impact his hitting. Whereas, you hear nowadays where someone goes from catcher to first base, or from first base to left field, and it's like, oh, it's impacting him at behind at the plate. And this is something where he just kept raking wherever he played, and he wasn't a bad fielder either. He excelled.
Yeah,
That's why I was so surprised.
And if you look at his 97, I guess that's where he starts to come into his own here. 97, he hits 315. So, and that's the Edgardo. He was such a clutch player. I mean, in some ways, kind of like a Wilmer Flores. Wilmer Flores actually reminds me of Edgardo a little bit, in the sense that he didn't have a position. He played first, play second, play third. But Edgardo would be the guy that you would want up, game on the line, 2 outs, because you knew he was always going to get on base, make contact. And Wilmer, I think, went through the Wilmer episode. We talked about, his natch for, ending the games.
Alfonso rips it into left field to tie the game. It gets past Bonds. It's a double for Alfonso, and it's 2-2 in the 8th. Looms huge right now. Alfonso comes through, his 3rd RBI of the series. And now you've got your closer pitching in a non-closing situation. The first blown save since early July for Rob Nen.
And if you look at it, his highest number of strikeouts was 85, and that was in 99 when he hit 304, and a 385 on base percentage. So, you don't worry about that. You don't worry about the strikeout. If you got a guy on third, less than 2 outs, you're going to get the run in, that kind of thing with Edgardo.
Yeah. Yeah. And then going back, so 95, Bobby Bo's there. So Edgardo plays 58 games at third base. I think Bobby Bo gets traded mid-season for Alex Ochoa, so that starts to free up a little space here. But interesting that he had to change positions a little bit. But he's a man without a position, really, till you get to the 98-99 season.
Yeah, and that's when you also see the injuries start to happen. So you've got August 95, or we have the back problems. So you start to see the beginning of that, and
third baseman really and back problems, I tell you.
It goes on and on. But I forgot this. The Mets moved Jeff Kent to third in 96. I did not remember that at all.
Not. That's news to me. Wow.
With Jose Vizcaino as the second baseman. So Alfonso was backing up both of them. And then Kent and Vizcaino end up getting sent to Cleveland to bring in Carlos Baerga. So I got to imagine you're Alfonso in the dugout, and you're like, what's going?
What do I have
get
to
a position? Do? Yeah. It's like they must have really not liked him as a second baseman. So you bring in Baerga, which is up there with all-time Met busts and situations. So Baerga, they brought him in, and then they put him at first base, and Edgardo at second. So I don't know. This is crazy. This is mind bending right now.
It's fun to go through this, though, I will say, because I only think of Alfonso of the second base, 99, 2000, 2001. Gets the third base in 2002 because Roberto Alomar screws him. But that's the Edgardo I remember. I don't remember any of this bouncing around.
100%. That's exactly what I'm like. He's a second baseman, and I thought maybe he was a shortstop in the minor leagues because of the Ray Ordonez thing, but otherwise he was a second baseman and then gets moved to third, and that was the end of that. But he moved around and around, and come 98, he was in third. He was at third base, and solid, hitting 278. Got up to 17 home runs. And again, as an infielder, that's usually like that's what I'm looking for. If you can get a second baseman that could hit the high 200s with almost 20 home runs, I think you'll take that, especially with the defense that he plays.
Absolutely. And he and like we said, he was just a great contact hitter. And that is, that's what you want out of your 2-hitter, your 3-hitter. He was contact. Yeah. And then 99, we're off to the races.
Yeah. That's the classic 2-hitter. You want them to be able to, know the fastball's coming and you can put it into play pretty much. But interesting. So in 97, he came in second in the Gold Glove voting, and then Robin Ventura comes in. It's just not enough.
Oh my goodness. But listen, you look at that 99 season, 304, 108 RBIs, part of the greatest infield ever, ? That's solid. I think he also had his, I'll call it the seminal moment, or at least the most memorable moment of his early career with the Randy Johnson postseason, home run or grand slam against the bullpen. I mean, maybe it wasn't against Randy Johnson, bottom of the ninth, top of the ninth, but gives the Mets the win, which is really important to walk out of Arizona with a split. And then you win the series from there. But
the one thing I remember about that 99 season, that 99 team, is sitting, in our favorite loge section seats at Shea Stadium. And this guy behind me, he was like, look at the lineup card. Is there anybody here hitting under 300? And I mean, it was incredible up and down the lineup at 99. I mean, I'll always say that was my favorite team. And I wish that team made the World Series in 99, because that was a team hit and field. It was pretty incredible.
Absolutely. Listen, and here we are, almost 20, 25 years later. I have to admit, my memory of that 99 game against Johnson's foggy, because I didn't stay up for it. I mean, the West Coast games, I don't know. I just fell asleep. But looking at it here, Alfonzo did hit a home run off of Johnson in the first inning to kind of give him that early start. And then it goes 4-4. And then obviously he hits the grand slam, in the ninth to give them the 8-4 win. So 2 homers in game 1 of that series to really set the tone.
Yeah. And I actually remember that, I guess we'll call it a play-in game, the tiebreaker game.
Yeah.
I remember I was at Mount Olympus Diner sitting when that game was going on. And I was, surprised about how everything went down, because as a Met fan, you're always expecting the worst and you're always nervous about how the game's going to happen. And we got out of that one. And then, like you said, Arizona.
Absolutely. The 2000 team, I don't have it in front of me, but I did see, I think it was when we did our postseason episode on the 2000 Mets, the watch along, which is also available in the archives. Edgardo had a solid NLCS. I think he hit like 340, 350. But he disappeared in the World Series. I think he only hit like 130, 140. And,
yeah, it's actually here. He hit 444 against the Cardinals in the NLCS and then down to 143. So it's a tough, especially when you're going against the Yankees.
And that's a big drop. That is a big drop. But, again, so many things went wrong that postseason with Timo and Benitez, and you could look back, but it makes you wonder if Alfonso is hitting 250, do the Mets have a better shot?
Yeah, see, we didn't ask for much. We didn't ask for
302. Give me 250.
Just give me 250. And speaking of 250, so once 2001 comes around, he's down to hitting 243. So he didn't even give you 250.
A year too late.
Yeah. And again, the pesky back comes up, and he's bothered by injuries. And even despite all that, so this is very interesting. The Mets offered a 3-year contract extension for $18 million in 2002 that Alfonzo turned down.
Wow.
So he ended up doing all right with a Giants deal later on, but at the time, with someone with back problems and things like that, that is a risky move. Yeah.
one thing that I do, I'll pause right there, and I know, it kind of relates, doesn't relate, but I remember Edgardo. I mean, he lived in Queens, if I remember right. Like right around this time, he's a multi-millionaire. It stood out to me because around the time of these contract negotiations, the 3-year, $18 million, okay, great, he turned it down, but he was a millionaire. I mean, and he's living in Queens, and, like Bayside or something like that. And that always like awe struck me. I don't know what the right word is,
Yeah.
but it doesn't jive.
Well, he's one of us, man. He's just one of those classic, iconic.
But that speaks to, you're right. That does speak to his, let's say, I'm sure he lived in a good part of Queens and a good side and everything like that. But, that's just the common man, I guess. I mean, because his son, I know I'm really jumping ahead, but, his son's a New York City boy, Queens. Like, apparently he's really good, too. The Mets drafted him. So maybe we'll see him somewhere down the line. But, he's a product of like Queens High School. Not exactly like, Iona Prep or anything like that. So
he's going for that Omar Minaya lineage over there, Queens and all. But that relates just to the super fast forward. Do you think Edgardo is a legend in the Mets fans? Do you think the average baseball fan knows Edgardo Alfonso?
No, I don't think so.
Which is interesting because you probably have second basemen with like less stats, overall, that are more well known, but it's just,
yeah,
he's just a Met through and through.
Oh, absolutely. And I think his failed stints, which we'll get to, post Mets, puts him in obscurity. I think if the Mets win the 2000 World Series, or if the back, holds out for another, because think about it, his back is 2001. I just told you that, he was a 21-year-old, 22-year-old his rookie year. So think about that. I mean, he's not even 30 when he's becoming a free agent with back injuries, back issues.
Yeah, it's
so
really
it robbed him. Absolutely robbed him.
And it's interesting because there's not that gradual decline here. I mean, it's off the cliff. Which is, that brings us to
29 years old.
2002. He ended up he did better in 2002, and then what happened is, of course, Robbie Alomar comes in again. It's like it's this carousel of infielders, and Edgardo just going wherever he needs to. So after that 2002 season is when he becomes a free agent. And all the Mets would offer was 2 years, $11 million, which, I don't blame them based on injury history and things like that. And, good for him. He got 4 years, $26 million from the Giants, which is, to me, it's incredible.
I got nothing for you. 2002. Let me think about this. 2002. Did the Giants just get out of? They just lost to the Angels. Is that the Angels Giants World Series?
I think so. Yeah.
And the Angels won that one because that was the Rally Monkeys. So you figure, Giants are looking for that quote unquote final piece. I could see the Giants doling out the cash, get that final piece.
I mean, I think it's a high risk, high reward situation where if it turns out you've seen what he's done in the past and maybe just get his injury situation worked out.
99, 2000, he was in the World Series 2 years ago. This could be our guy, Yeah, I could. That's fascinating though.
This also brings up a name that I remembered vividly at the time and completely forgot about. The third baseman Nakamura from Japan. Oh my goodness.
You love your Japanese players, by the way, because
I love all the bad ones. I think
you reel these names off. I do not remember Nakamura. Saved my life.
Nakamura, who then I ended up looking at. So in 2002, he agrees to a 2-year, $7 million contract with the Mets. But word leaked out of the deal. So to his Japanese team, and then he said he was upset because the information was leaked. So he recanted the deal, whatever. 2003, he tears his knee. He tears his knee up. And then in 2005, he walks away from a $10 million deal in Japan, a 2-year deal, and he signed a $500,000 non-guaranteed minor league deal with the Dodgers. So he ended up going to the Dodgers and
Did he
never.
have Brody Van Wagenen as his agent? Jeez.
It's funny because I remember this so vividly, and he literally did nothing in the big leagues. He only hit 128 at some point. So that's your flashback into Japanese baseball transactions. I'm really not an expert, folks.
Thank you for not taking me down Kaz Matsui.
No.
There. I thought you were going to tell me, the Mets replaced Alfonzo with Kaz Matsui, because that would have been devastating if you would have told me that.
Well, they're working on that. That's what they really want to do. But again, talking about what a great New York guy Edgardo Alfonzo is, he bought ad toppers, taxi toppers, which are a thing. We invest in those in our business over here every now and again. It's not cheap, I'm sure. And Fonzie loves New York. Edgardo, thanks you. We're on taxi toppers in 2003. So a real Met through and through, and that little extra topping there does a lot for us. No pun intended.
What memories do you have of Edgardo Alfonzo? I mean, for all the games that you've been to and the games that we've gone together, does anything stand out?
He's just my kind of player. He's that, again, I like these 280 hitters, 17 home runs and just double machines.
Yep.
That's what I like. Get the ball in play. Keith always says, it's better to not kill the rally. You just replace the guy who's on second. Doubles.
Yep.
That was my kind of guy. And then literally what just comes to mind is always the cover of Sports Illustrated. Seeing him there with the black jerseys on and the best infield ever. It's just, that's the look with Edgardo with the turtleneck on. And it's just, that's what you think about. But he's my kind of player. He's my number 2 hitter. That's why I liked, LaDuca so much when we got him.
Yep.
Because I think we've struggled with that over the years. And we've really had some piecemeal 1 and 2 hitters that we moved around. And I know the game is probably a lot different these days. But that's what that's our kind of bread and butter, is the fast leadoff hitter, your high percentage second hitter, and then you got your big bat coming up third.
I gotta tell you, I almost feel like, I'm embarrassed to say this, but you almost take him for granted, because there's not, we talked about the Randy Johnson postseason home run. Okay, great. But there isn't many moments when you go to a game, as you've seen in this podcast, I can reel off, okay, yeah, so-and-so hit a double, or, Robinson Cano had a huge home run, loudest Citi Field ever was. You take it for granted because he was so consistent. I'm sure there were big hits at games we went to. The one game that does stand out, and it's for the wrong reasons, and I'm sure we'll do this episode maybe in August when it's low listenership, but going back to what was it, 2002? The Mets were still fighting for the wild card. They were kind of battling a little bit. It was August. It was a doubleheader. Alfonzo hits a home run in game 1. Alfonzo hits a home run to give the Mets the lead against the Diamondbacks, maybe the 8th inning or so. Benitez gives up a home run to Jay Bell or Craig Counsell, one of those guys. The Diamondbacks win game 1, and then game 2, I was at the game with Ant and my cousin Philip. Sat, Ant had hooked us up, front row, right behind the dugout. Mo Vaughn looked at me, threw the ball at me. I had it in my hand, and I was so nervous that I fumbled it, and the ball just went on the dugout top.
Oh my God!
Into the dugout.
Oh my!
Pedro Estacio looked at me like I was. We're gonna have to beep that one out.
Beep that out, please.
And but that game was Jeremy Burnitz, struck out 8 times between the 2 games. I mean, it was horrible. But I feel like, first of all, game 2 was dead as a doornail. I've never been to Shea Stadium where you could hear crickets, literally crickets. And maybe it would have been different, right? Because Alfonzo hits the homer. You win game 1, maybe you win game 2, you sweep, and now all of a sudden maybe you're 2 games out of a wild card. That was the end. That was the end of the 2002 Mets, and frankly, that was the end of the Bobby Valentine era, because he was gone after that.
It's interesting talking about 2002. So I just took a quick look at the roster, and Marco Scutero was on the team in 2002. And you know where he's from? San Felipe, Venezuela. So very interesting connection there in 2002. I think we're going to do a Marco Scutaro episode because he's another interesting. He's kind of like the Justin Turner. He's these infielders that we had for about 5.5 minutes, and then all of a sudden they start.
Then they
going
go to the
on
West
tear.
Coast, and they're set for life.
They get some extra sleep.
One thing we didn't talk about, and I know we're running out of time, and we won't go into detail too much, but I think a couple of things. One, Fonzie, rightfully, wrongfully, I don't know what the right word is, but takes the Brooklyn Cyclones to a championship 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? But yeah, because last year gets fought, or what? Maybe it was last year. I can't remember. It
must have been 2019 or something, because
and then they tell
the
him,
years are all.
Then they tell him, "Thank you, thanks, but no thanks. You're not coming back." That's pretty crappy.
Yeah, I think we need a little better connection of. I think that management needs a little more of a finger on the pulse of us Met fans, and it's certain guys like Mookie and Wally Backman, for as crazy as he is. Can we just
you give them jobs for life? Yeah, that's just it.
They need the John Starks MSG treatment is what we need right over here.
Exactly. And then I was also surprised. Edgardo is in the Mets Hall of Fame. I don't remember an announcement.
Oh, I don't remember that either.
Was that like a low key? I mean.
Was that a 2020 ad?
Yes, it actually was.
Oh, of course. So,
but
not much opportunity to see him.
Look at this. On January 28th, 2020, the Mets announced Alfonzo would be inducted to the Mets Hall of Fame.
Oh, so maybe we didn't have the ceremony yet.
I just hope they don't forget about it. That was 2020.
Oh, that's sad. They're gonna think it was Lee Mazzilli instead, and they're gonna induct Lee Mazzilli and his number 13.
Can you imagine that? No, it's actually a good class here. You know how we always end with, is so-and-so a Hall of Famer? I can't end that way because Edgardo. So Ron Darling, Edgardo Alfonzo among 2020 inductees, along with Al Jackson and John Matlack.
Okay. A little new, a little old. Okay. Yeah. I like it.
I just hope Uncle Stevie remembers that.
Steve, if you're listening, buddy. There's a Hall of Fame induction ceremony to happen, and if you need two MCs, here we are.
It's going to be like this year's. By the way, I'm very excited. We're getting close to WrestleMania season, but the Hall of Fame is going to be like 9 hours between last year's class and this year's class.
They should just do it as they should do inductions as commercial breaks in between matches or something. Let's be efficient with our peacock time that we use right now.
Look at this. For me to get inducted to the Mets Hall of Fame on the 20th anniversary of our National League Championship is a special thrill. I'd like to congratulate Ron and John on their introductions. I'm glad Al Jackson's getting honored. He was a pitching coach for 2 years. He was our pitching coach for 2 years and one of my favorites. So
was he really?
They coached together.
Al Jackson? Wow. What a classy guy Mr. Alfonzo is. Jeez. He can't even put out a press release that's even a little bit controversial. He just has to be so nice. Tired of this guy. When are we moving on to Lee Mazzilli? This guy's too nice. So
where do you think Edgardo goes from here? Like, all right, so
Edgardo needs to be a bench coach for Luis Rojas. I'm saying it right now.
All right.
I'm saying it right now. Get him out. He needs to be on the coaching staff. How could someone who is a manager for so many minor league teams and we could run through it real quick as well, but with all of that experience and you can't have him on the big league roster, I say you bring in Edgardo, let him be the third base coach, bring in Willie to be the bench coach, and let's get things moving.
Let's go.
And if it happens, then we have people listening to this podcast. That's for sure.
Well, we already have Willie being the 2025, Marlins.
That's
manager,
right. Yeah.
So
he's going to be the Marlins manager here. When they're owned by the league. He's going to be their manager. But so San Francisco really didn't work out for Edgardo. He ended up getting traded to LA, the Angels, for Steve Finley of all people. Again, this is in 2005 or 6. Then signed a minor league deal with the Blue Jays, ended up being released there. And speaking of the Blue Fish were up next. So you want to talk about love for baseball and dedication by Edgardo Alfonzo. When you start rattling off these independent and whatever else league names, he played in 2006 for the Bridgeport Bluefish. which got him enough for at least a look, right? As you were saying earlier, right?
Did he get the replacement? Was he Jose Offerman's replacement after Jose Offerman like attacked someone with a baseball bat and got arrested? Do you remember that story?
Was it Jose Offerman who kicked the catcher and swung at the catcher? Or he swung at the pitcher because there's so many
swung
clips.
at the pitcher, but he swung with a bat and they arrested him.
Shout out to Jose Offerman's daughter, by the way, JoJo. Wyndham Rotunda, also known as Bray Wyatt's wife, baby mama, something like that. God bless. I liked Jose Offerman until he started swinging bats at pitchers.
I was just wondering if Offerman got arrested, so they called Alfonso. I mean,
I think that's what we should say. Let's go with it. That's the story.
We're going with it. All right,
that's what we're going with. So, whatever it was enough to put him on the radar of the Mets. Like you had brought up off air, Ray, which I forgot about. So Edgardo Alfonzo, think about this, in 2006 is reporting to AAA for the New York Mets. I mean, the guy's got pride and dignity. It's pretty incredible.
Could you imagine because we all know second base was Jose Valentin, and Valentin was a key part of that 06 team, but I don't know. The nostalgia factor in me wonders, wishes, whatever the word is, like what would have happened if Alfonso was on the bench for that 06 team?
I think you got to do it. Get him out there. Come on.
He would have been hitting instead of Cliff Floyd, which we talked about in the Wooly episode, how much I disdain that move.
He would have bunted. So he didn't make the big league roster, right? That's what we're getting at. Then he goes, this is always the, not to kind of bury the lead here. This is always the Bluefish, the Long Island Ducks and Newark Bears is always this local kind of rotation, the circuit that players go on. It depends on how long you want to hang around for. So 2007, he's with the Long Island Ducks. 2007, later on in the year in 2008, he's with the Rangers, the Texas Rangers, minor league, went back to the Long Island Ducks. Then, because Ray knows I love talking about Japanese, February 2009, he's with the Yomiuri Giants, and he got released in December. So, I mean, we're talking about one season there. Then comes back around for the big reuniting. 2010, Newark Bears, Edgardo Alfonzo, and Armando Benitez.
No comment.
And lastly, just to put a bow on the minor league and independent league career of Edgardo Alfonzo, we're talking about 2012. So however many years, I mean, after we're talking about like 10 seasons after his Mets prime, the White Sox signed him to the Charlotte Knights minor league team. Best known
beautiful
for
stadium.
Michael Jordan.
we drove by that stadium. Remember that we saw the Giants Panthers that Saturday. We went on that silly bus tour with
drunk. Shout out, by the way, to a drunken bus tour which we took for the first time in Charlotte.
Squirrel. I just remember the girl yelling "Squirrel."
Yeah, the comedian host was both the DJ, MC, and bartender, and
I'm surprised she wasn't the bus driver too.
What an odd crew! But Ray was on there with a bottle of wine, classing up the
open
joint.
beers, and here comes Ray with the rosé.
Ray comes with a flute and a bottle of rosé. So
anyway,
drunken
beautiful
tours.
Beautiful stadium. Charlotte.
We'll go in it one time. So that was Edgardo's last run in the minors, and then shortly thereafter he ends up coaching on the Cyclones. So was the bench coach in 2014. So like we said, he stuck around with the Cyclones. He won the Penn League championship in 2019, and then he wouldn't get a renewal of the contract. So
unless he's got like a Julio Machado incident under him, and that's why we're just not acknowledging him. It's just so bizarre that the Mets would cut ties like that. It's almost like they put him in the Hall of Fame as a mea culpa. I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's like completely related to. It's like we're gonna cut you from this gig that you just won the championship, and then induct you into the Hall of Fame. But maybe he will get that place on the staff like we're looking for.
I'd rather him than Brian Schneider, who's my catching instructor over here.
Can't he be an infield instructor or something? Come on.
Who's our first base coach?
I don't know any of our coaches right now. Once we had a guy named Sherlock as a coach. I gave up on all of our coaches.
He was clueless there.
I want a first base and a third base coach. If I'm going to see their names and numbers, I want it to be an ex-Met. I want it to be a former player. You put Mookie at first, Edgardo at third. Yeah.
I could live with that. It's better than Gary DiSarcina.
Yeah, I don't.
And listen, he could teach JD how to play third.
Yeah, let's bring him in. So for all those listening,
we're campaigning.
Bring Edgardo back to New York.
Louis Lopez is going to be gone by well, no, Louis. I don't want Louis to be gone, but someone's going to be gone. There's going to be a midnight massacre, and Edgardo is going to be part of those taxi coaches, like in the Wooly episode where we talked about how the Mets shipped 3 coaches in a hotel before the announcement.
We're going to have Mookie, Edgardo, and Willie waiting in the wings. And we're just going to, all of a sudden, they're going to show up on first, third, and as a bench coach. And John Franco will be the bullpen coach, and we'll be good to go.
Oh, man. Speaking of being good to go, I think this was a lot of fun. It was good to kind of, here I am thinking we were going to talk about Lee Mazzilli. I had my notes. But I still had fun talking about Edgardo.
Exactly. I'm glad you were able to recover from the Lee Mazzilli incident, and we talked about Edgardo, one of my all-time favorite Mets, honestly.
And you know what? He like I said earlier, underappreciated, maybe taken for granted, but his headlines wrote for themselves. He was a copywriter's dream with Happy Days Back Again, or hey. But Fonzie, thank you for the memories. Really appreciate it. And I guess since it's Sunday and it's raining, probably a good time to just go take a nap now. So I'm going to go. Johnny, what do you have to say, my friend?
Drive home safe, everybody.